A team of local and state law enforcement personnel, along with dozens of community volunteers, searched the woods where June's car was discovered.
This road here.
We had a tremendous amount of help from surrounding counties. A lot of people that just called in volunteering, wanting to help when they heard that June Erkelens was missing.
We're going to divide up in two groups. Half of you's going to go on the right side, half of you's going to go on the left side. Stay within 15, 20 foot of one another so you've got good sight of everybody as we go through the woods. Okay, let's go.
The search party fanned out in different directions. Officers on horseback tackled the off-road terrain.
What's up, Panic Fam? I'm Hannah. And if it's 2 a.m., the lights are off and the popcorn is gone cold, you know, it's Panic TV time. Welcome. If you survived this, and this, congratulations, all right? Congratulations, but your luck runs out here.
Georgia investigators are relieved to find no one at home during a house fire. But as forensic examiners know, first impressions can be deceiving. In the dense woods of northern Tennessee, a hunter discovers the abandoned car of a missing woman. Detectives quickly realize the scene poses more questions than it answers. Although investigators routinely rely on first-hand accounts and physical evidence to piece together clues, there are times no such clues are apparent. It is these times when science acts as eyes, leading law enforcement to answers. When forensic science takes the place of an absent witness. In this episode, some of the names have been changed. The Savannah River is at once both tranquil and mighty. Its waters run fast and deep. Beneath its surface lies a murky world full of dark secrets. On August 15, 1998, the Richmond-Augusta County Fire Department in Augusta, Georgia, responded to an urgent 911 call. A house on Elizabeth Drive was on fire. Investigators arrived as dense smoke consumed the house. They scrambled to bring the fire under control. As firefighters made their way through the smoke, they detected the faint smell of gasoline. They hurried to find anyone who may be trapped inside. There were indications the fire started in the foyer. Although the bedroom was filled with smoke, there was little damage from the fire. Firefighters were relieved to find no one was home. It was now up to arson investigators to determine the cause of the fire. Neighbors told police a man named Al Hamilton owned and lived in the house. They hadn't seen him since yesterday, and his car was gone.
Okay, does anyone else live here with him?
I don't think anybody lives.
The Richmond County Sheriff's Department began a routine investigation. To investigator Dwayne Piper, there were many unanswered questions.
My initial impression of the scene was that there was foul play involved. The fires did not seem to start from the actual walls themselves. They seemed to originate just out from the wall. And in my mind, that suggested that it wasn't an electrical fire.
Later that afternoon, a woman named Donna Edwards arrived at the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you.
She said she was Al Hamilton's girlfriend and was concerned when he missed their date. She drove by his house and panicked.
His house was burning, and they said I should come.
Well, we've been to the house, and I can assure you I was not in the house.
Donna was relieved to hear that no one was injured, but she was still worried.
No. I haven't even talked to him since last night. The last I saw of him, maybe before I
It
go
wasn't
sleep,
like him to just take off without a word.
And he tells me everything.
Does he have any family?
Hamilton was very close to his family.
Could check his mom.
He took care of his elderly mother and disabled sister who lived in town.
Yes, yeah.
Donna called them, and they hadn't heard from him either.
Does he have any family?
Recently divorced and living in her mother's house, Donna told Piper she and Hamilton were very happy.
Come here, baby. Look at this one. Right here in this Peters community.
They were looking to buy land and build a house together.
Resort center. Clubhouse.
Donna had plans with Hamilton to look at property that morning,
Couple
but he
options.
never showed up.
Peters community. Kind of the same thing.
Where does he work?
He works out.
Donna told Detective Piper that Hamilton worked as a manager at a local bar.
Normally he calls and
She worried about his long hours and said he didn't get off work until after 3 a.m.
I'll get someone to go speak with his mom, and I'll go talk to his
She was sure something happened to him.
And you'll get back with me as
I'll
soon
give
as
you a
possible.
call, and I'll go talk to his
Although he agreed to look into it, Investigator Piper explained to Donna there was little he could do. Hamilton was a grown man and could disappear if he wanted. After 2 days, there was still no word from Al Hamilton. Piper and his partner, investigator Joanne Nutter, were eager to read the arson report.
And according to the arson investigator, the fire was not accidental.
The report indicated there were 2 sources of origin.
There was no
The fires were set using an accelerant in both the entryway and the bedroom.
and according to their summary, the fire was
Although they suspected the accelerant was gasoline, the results were inconclusive. Al Hamilton was still missing, and the report convinced investigators something terrible had happened. They needed to find him.
1012, 1065, missing vehicle. 1012, 1065, missing vehicle. Be on the lookout for
An APB went out to field officers to be on the lookout for Hamilton and his car. Piper suspected there were more answers at the crime scene.
Hello, this is Investigator Piper with the Sheriff's Office, Richmond County.
He called the Georgia Public Safety Office for assistance. Investigator Piper and forensic expert Jerry Findley of the GPS met at Hamilton's house.
Jerry.
Findley noticed a strange dent on the footboard of the bed.
Yeah, it's like an impact of some kind, some object there, some rounded.
It was consistent in size and shape with a baseball bat.
Findley also saw what appeared to be blood on the footboard. The pattern resembled a swipe stain.
A swipe stain is when a bloody object comes in contact with a non-bloody surface, and you can tell movement and direction which way the swipe is actually going.
The stain traveled from left to right as he faced the foot of the bed. And something else caught his attention.
We found little pieces of hair in the swipe, which would be consistent with a head injury and a bleeding head coming in contact with the footboard. Down in this area here. The location of the stains revealed to me that someone was bludgeoned very severely at the foot of the bed. Yeah, that looks good. Looks good.
As they inspected the room for more clues, they found more blood stains.
At the side of the room on the wall, I observed stains that were consistent with cast-off stains. And in looking at those, I believed that there had to be more there. Do this very carefully because we don't know how stable they are.
Findley needed to get a closer look.
Up here at the top. I got a rag and started wiping and found the remainder of the cast-off stains were under the soot.
Findley discovered that the soot had preserved the blood. This indicated the fire was set after the beating. Someone had tried to cover up a violent act. To reconstruct the events, Findley ran strings backwards, from the blood spatter on the walls to the area of origin of the blood.
Where you want to put the string. Okay. Okay.
A laser beam helped him determine the exact angles and trajectories of the spatter.
And that's where you need to go here. I completed my analysis by first determining the directionality of the impact stains.
Go ahead and hook it right
I
there.
calculated the angles at which they actually struck the wall and drew the strings back to where the strings crossed. That is the point of origin of the blood, which would have to be the head of the victim.
Okay, Dwayne, one thing I can tell you right now.
The person was either on his knees or sitting down at the time he was being bludgeoned.
Right in this area right here. This is the area of impact for these stains. Right in this area.
The dent on the footboard suggested the victim was struck with a blunt force object. Using a baseball bat in the lab, Findley replicated the cast-off spatter found on the bedroom walls.
A cast-off stain is as the item is brought upward from that impact. It has a certain amount of blood on the instrument itself, and that blood is actually being cast off. As it comes across, it's breaking away from that instrument, whether it be a hand, a baseball bat, or a brick or whatever. It's going to break away and be cast upward and out, usually across the ceiling, if you're hitting straight on like so.
Investigators knew something violent had happened in Al Hamilton's house. But now the question was Hamilton the perpetrator or the victim? The blood found at the crime scene was sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab. Al Hamilton recently had blood work, and his doctor supplied a sample to compare with the blood found on the footboard. They matched. Al Hamilton was the victim. Chief Medical Examiner Chris Sperry analyzed the photographs of the scene. The arc of the blood and the amount of cast-off trajectories told a violent story.
Based upon the evidence that was illustrated in the photographs, this was a crime that incorporated a great deal of aggression, of anger, or perhaps even hatred. All of the blows were directed at the head and probably the face as well, and there were repeated blows. And basically what it indicated was this man was beaten about the head and the face multiple times until he was dead.
Police were now working a homicide. Al Hamilton had not survived the vicious attack. Investigator Piper retraced his last steps.
Hi, I'm Investigator Piper with the Sheriff's Office, Richmond County.
His first stop, the bar where Hamilton worked as a manager.
Last weekend.
His boss told investigators he was a model employee.
No problems with any customers, other employees? No, he's busy.
He also said nothing out of the ordinary had happened at the bar that night, and Hamilton had locked up around 3 a.m.
No, sir.
Piper met again with Donna Edwards.
I'm okay.
Drive okay?
Yeah, I've been better.
I do need to ask you something.
He asked her if she could think of anyone who would want to harm Hamilton. She did recall something that had happened a few months earlier. She and Hamilton had been returning from dinner one night when a large truck came out of nowhere and headed straight for him. He jumped out of the way, but was almost run down. The truck looked like the one her ex-husband, Rodney Richardson, used at work. She said Richardson couldn't come to grips with the divorce and was jealous of her relationship with Hamilton. Donna also told Piper Richardson was abusive throughout their marriage, and she was afraid of him. Recently, he'd even stopped by her mom's house and confronted her about her relationship with Hamilton. But still, Donna didn't believe Richardson was capable of murder. Besides, she said, she had received a phone call from Rodney at 1 a.m. at her mom's house on the night of the murder. He told her he was at a phone booth on the other side of town. To investigator Piper, Rodney Richardson had motive to murder Al Hamilton. But motive doesn't always make a killer. And without a body, it would be difficult to prove a murder took place at all. Both Al Hamilton and his car vanished. A body can be disposed of anywhere, but a car is almost impossible to hide. And the only place large enough to conceal a car was the mighty Savannah River. In Augusta, Georgia, investigators uncovered the brutal slaying of Al Hamilton.
Right now is when this impact took place.
His killer set fire to his house, attempting to cover up the crime.
The area of impact, the area of origin of these bloodstains.
Donna Edwards, Hamilton's girlfriend, was concerned her ex-husband, Rodney Richardson, was involved. But there was no evidence against him.
No, I said no. I mean, Al was a good guy. No, don't know of anymore.
Hamilton's body and his car were still nowhere to be found. Police believed the answer lay at the bottom of the Savannah River. Despite a thorough search, they found nothing. Investigator Dwayne Piper was frustrated by the case.
Well, there were many challenges that we faced in the investigation. For starters, there was no bodies, so a lot of the evidence had been consumed in the fire or destroyed in the extinguishing of the fire. There were no eyewitnesses to the investigation, so there was no one with whom we could speak that could tell us what happened.
Well, it was real early.
Piper learned Richardson dropped by Donna's mother's house on the morning of the fire.
He came in and, well, it was
But Donna was
real
not
early
home.
This morning. He woke me up. I was sound asleep on the couch when he came in.
Donna's mother recalled Richardson carrying 2 cloth bags. He asked if he could leave some things in Donna's bedroom. When he came out, he wasn't wearing his shoes, and he no longer had the bags.
Well, they were there. Here they are.
Great.
She gave the items to the police.
And I'll be back in touch with you, okay?
Piper sent the shoes to the forensic lab for analysis. Piper contacted Donna and asked her why she never mentioned the bags. She said she was afraid to say anything. She recognized the bags as belonging to Hamilton and didn't want to believe that Richardson was somehow involved. Investigator Piper was certain Rodney Richardson had killed Al Hamilton. He now hoped the tennis shoes could place him at the scene. At the lab, the technician examined the shoes for any debris or ash in the treads. And he also ran tests for the presence of gasoline. The treads were clean. Traces of gas were found on the shoes. But traces of gas weren't enough. Richardson worked in construction and came into contact with it daily. Investigators needed more.
At least a few different kept.
For you, the phone records you subpoenaed?
Yes.
Here they are.
Piper remembered Donna said she received a 1 a.m. call from Richardson on the morning of the fire, saying he was calling from a payphone. Piper wasn't so sure. On a hunch, he secured Al Hamilton's phone records. On the night in question, a call was made from Hamilton's house to Donna's house at 1 a.m. Al Hamilton couldn't have made the call. He worked until 3 a.m. Though circumstantial, the call suggested that Rodney Richardson was in Hamilton's house on the night of the murder.
A moderate level so it doesn't drown out the conversation from across the room.
Okay.
Okay, and once
Police needed direct evidence to make an arrest, and they asked Donna Edwards for help.
Okay. And to activate it, all you do
She agreed and tried to get a confession on tape.
and it will lock on. It's real. It's going to run for approximately 3 hours, so you don't have to force the conversation.
Ugh, I swear my neighbors think I'm probably getting murdered right now.
Donna recorded her conversations with Rodney over a period of several evenings. She told him she wanted to know what happened to Hamilton so she could get on with her life.
What do you want me to give you? What do you want me to tell you?
I want you to just tell me the truth. Tell me what happened. Just tell me what happened. Just tell me.
Richardson finally admitted to the crime.
All right. I killed Al.
He said he hadn't meant to kill Hamilton. He only wanted to scare him.
It was an accident. It's not like I...
But then he lost control.
I mean...
The next thing he knew, Hamilton was dead.
supposed to be your husband, and you treat me like this?
Richardson said he disposed of the body and was sure the police would never find it. And without a body, he bragged, they could never prosecute him. If they tried, he said he would not go down without a fight.
What do you want me to give you? What do you want me to tell you?
I want you to just...
The confession was enough to get an arrest warrant.
All right. I killed Al. How about that? I didn't mean it to happen, but it did.
Given Richardson's history of violence, investigators plotted with Donna to take him by surprise. While Donna and Richardson were out, the police hid inside her house. Their plan worked. Richardson was arrested without incident. Based on the evidence, investigators believe Rodney Richardson broke into Al Hamilton's home to ambush him. But he was overcome by rage, and after repeated blows, Hamilton was dead. Richardson stashed the body in Hamilton's car and hid the car where no one would find it. Attempting to cover his crime, he set the house on fire. Neither Al Hamilton's body nor his car were ever found. Rodney Richardson was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison.
The importance of forensic science in this case was absolutely crucial. Without the blood pattern work, the DNA work, and the arson investigation, this case would have never gone to court. There would have never been an arrest. It was through these three methods of investigation that we were able to make the arrest without a body, and to this day we still haven't gotten a body.
Time the impact took place,
Rodney Richardson mistakenly believed without a body, investigators wouldn't be able to make their case against him. He was wrong. In rural Tennessee, authorities must piece together blood-stained clues to find a missing woman, dead or alive. Stewart County, Tennessee is a small rural community where even the police know everyone by name. They average just one violent crime a year. On a Monday night in late 1990, a hunter spotted a car partially hidden by trees. It appeared to have run off the road. As he approached the car, he noticed no one inside. The hunter wrote down the license plate number and contacted police.
911.
The Stewart County Sheriff's Office received the call.
Thank you. Stewart County to 903. There's been a report of an abandoned vehicle.
The dispatcher sent a patrol unit to investigate. She ran the license plate number and discovered the car was registered to June Atkins. Earlier that day, a woman was reported missing. Now, police feared June Atkins was wandering the woods, alone and injured. In Tennessee, Stewart County police were dispatched to an abandoned car that had run off the road. The car was registered to a missing woman named June Atkins. Police found the car wedged against a tree. The passenger side door was opened, and it looked as if someone had gotten out. Inside the car, police found little. They searched the area, wondering if June had crawled out and lay injured somewhere nearby. They found nothing. Sheriff David Hicks questioned June's husband about his missing wife. He said June went to visit her mother in a nearby town, but never arrived. Atkins was concerned. If she didn't go to her mother's house, he didn't know where she was.
We don't start taking missing persons investigations this serious, this quick.
Sheriff Hicks told Atkins he found her car and believed she had been in some kind of accident. June's car was impounded. Investigators hoped it would yield some clues as to her whereabouts. Forensic examiners looked for fingerprints and anything else that would explain what happened to June. But the only thing they found were the missing woman's fingerprints. Police needed to act quickly. If June Atkins was injured and wandering in the woods, she would need medical attention. A team of local and state law enforcement personnel, along with dozens of community volunteers, searched the woods where June's car was discovered.
We had a tremendous amount of help from surrounding counties. A lot of people that just called in volunteering, wanting to help when they heard that June Atkins was missing.
We're going to divide up in two groups. Half of you's going to go on the right side, half of you's going to go on the left side. Stay within 15, 20 foot of one another so you've got good sight of everybody as we go through the woods. Okay, let's go.
The search party fanned out in different directions. Officers on horseback tackled the off-road terrain. The Tennessee Highway Patrol provided helicopter surveillance and a contact point from above. The search lasted for several hours. Police received a call over the radio. Something had been found near the Paris Landing Bridge. Rick Stout of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation was part of the search team.
Hey, David.
He brought what was discovered to Sheriff Hicks.
Got here on Highway 79, just east of the bridge, about a quarter mile off the side of the road.
A group of searchers had found a patchwork quilt.
Blanket or comforter. Well, I took it out. I don't want to lose anything in it. And, interesting.
It appeared to be blood-stained. Near the quilt were a pair of men's cotton work gloves.
What's interesting, they were found with the blanket.
The gloves smelled of gasoline. The investigation changed as searchers realized they may now be looking for a body.
Tell us at the lab what kind of petroleum product.
Crime scene technicians joined the search. Later that afternoon, several miles from where the quilt was found, a woman's wallet was discovered.
We found some contents of a purse. Some of them we know belonged to June Atkins because her identification was in a wallet that was found. Found some other contents that appear to have come from a purse.
The search continued for several more hours. Then, more disturbing news.
Here, you take the camera.
A large amount of blood had been found in the grass. The area was photographed and the blood swabbed for analysis. they collected anything that may be of help, including blood-soaked grass. Underneath the grass, they found a woman's watch. Rick Stout believed the findings suggested something horrible had happened to June Atkins.
We have a car that was dumped in the woods. We have her personal belongings. We have a quilt that had blood on it, which there's got to be an explanation for that. And when we find personal belongings thrown out along the side of the road, she's not going to do that. You know, her driver's license, her wallet, and other personal items. That tells us that there is foul play involved.
Rick, you take.
There was blood, but no body. And investigators had questions.
All this.
At this point, they had no idea what happened to June Atkins.
We did not find any evidence as to where June might be or her body might be. We had some hopes of possibly finding June alive, but we did not.
Let's see, I think the first thing we'll do is look at...
Everything collected was sent to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab.
Okay.
Forensic serologist 𝐃𝐿𝐴 tested the items for blood.
I opened the quilt up, spread it out. It did have a very large blood stain on it. And so the first thing I did was a chemical color test to see if it was blood. And my chemical color test indicated that it was. So the next thing I wanted to do was to determine if it was human blood or not. Definitely blood. So I did testing on that and determined that it was indeed human blood. It's like dirt.
The work gloves were too dark to see any blood.
I do not see a thing. There it is. Look at that.
Using an alternate light source, 𝐃𝐞𝐿 examined the gloves.
Not very big.
She discovered several small stains resembling blood, but they tested negative. The results were inconclusive. She then examined the sage grass.
From a different scene, they had brought in some grass that they had just pulled up. And so I looked at the grass and did indeed find blood on the grass. We'll get a picture of it anyway.
The blood on the items was compared with a sample of June Atkins' blood provided by her doctor. The blood matched.
Yeah, she must have been bleeding quite a bit to have this much blood.
𝐃𝐞𝐿 was asked by investigators if she could determine whether June was still alive.
The volume of blood that was on the quilt was a fair amount of blood, but I mean, it could have been from maybe a non-lethal injury. But the fact that there was 2 or 3 areas of grass that had blood on it, that was more indicative of someone who had bled out quite a bit. And that was fairly indicative that she could have been mortally wounded. Well,
June Atkins was dead.
Look what we've got. I mean,
her killer was unknown.
I understand that if we had a body, it'd be better. We've got the quilt, we've got the gloves.
And now, police needed to find out who killed her and why. Tennessee police continued to investigate June Atkins' brutal murder. Although no body was found, massive blood at the scene indicated she could not have survived.
Can you tell me if that's June's watch or not?
June's husband recognized his wife's watch.
Keep that up.
He had given it to her as a Christmas present.
Besides, I picked out Grandpa's present. You guys can just say it. It's true.
Sheriff Hicks broke the news of June's murder to her husband and asked if he could think of anyone who wanted to harm her. June's husband recalled a note he found in June's car several weeks before she disappeared. It was in a man's handwriting asking her to meet him at the Dyers Creek boat ramp. That was all he knew. Deputies spoke with June's co-workers, hoping her friends could identify the mystery man. Sheriff David Hicks.
Friends of June told us that June had been seeing a man by the name of Kenneth Pipkin, and that they had been meeting at the Dyers Creek boat ramp.
Hicks tracked down Kenneth Pipkin at the logging site where he worked. He admitted he knew June. He was dating her husband's sister. And he denied ever meeting her at the Dyers Creek boat ramp. Sheriff Hicks was not convinced.
We needed to gather a lot more information before we talked to him again.
Police canvassed the neighborhood around the boat ramp. A clerk at a nearby convenience store knew June well. And she also knew Kenneth Pipkin. She didn't think highly of Pipkin. She described him as a womanizer, obsessed with his truck. So obsessed, he kept a patchwork quilt on the seat to keep it clean. One day, she recalled seeing Pipkin and June talking outside. She watched as June followed him out of the parking lot in the direction of the Dyers Creek boat ramp.
She comes in, gets gas.
The clerk told police Pipkin had come in looking for June on more than one occasion.
I thank you for your help.
Her story did not match Pipkin's.
We've just got 3 missing.
Police got a break. A fisherman called in with new information.
He said on the day she disappeared that he was at the Dyers Creek boat ramp. He saw a woman and a man in a pickup truck.
His description of the vehicles matched both Pipkin's and June's. Police brought Kenneth Pipkin in for questioning. They showed him pictures of the bloody quilt.
I remember having a blanket.
He admitted it was similar to one he used in his truck.
If you could slap one character for their dumb decisions, who would it be? Huh? Go on. Vent in the comments. I can't wait to read.
But his had been stolen earlier that year.
You have your... remember having quilts?
Pipkin swore he had nothing to do with June's disappearance.
You have your blanket with you in your truck.
He claimed he hadn't even seen her on the day she disappeared.
I'm showing you.
Police knew Kenneth Pipkin was lying,
I just know I have.
but they needed more to prove he was a murderer. Now they needed to learn why. Police in Tennessee had a suspect in the murder of June Atkins. Large amounts of her blood were found in the nearby forest, but no body had been recovered.
I got pictures of it, but we probably need to spread it out when we get into better things.
The suspect, Kenneth Pipkin, was seen with her shortly before her disappearance. A search warrant was issued for his truck and home. Crime techs processed the vehicle. They discovered tiny cloth fibers on the floor. They were collected and sent to the crime lab. Several pairs of cotton work gloves were found in the house. They were the same size and style as those found at the crime scene. The evidence was sent back to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Forensic specialist Russ Davis assisted on the case. He brushed the quilt found at the crime scene, collecting any loose fibers.
The issue became, can we connect the victim through this blanket to our suspect? And that's where the fiber evidence came from. Fiber is associative evidence. Fibers are the basic unit of all textiles. Clothing, carpeting, anything like that will shed the fibers, the very small portion which makes up the textile garment. And that's what can transfer.
Davis then checked for a match.
Those samples are then compared to the known samples from the vehicle in this case. Then they are looked at to determine if there in fact was fibers just like the ones found on the blanket found inside the vehicle.
Fibers from the bloody quilt matched the fibers collected from Pipkin's truck.
The report went out dealing with the serological evidence that this quilt had in fact been bled on by the victim. The following work on the fiber then said that this material in this swatch of the quilt, in fact, there were fibers like that found in the suspect's vehicle. That makes a link between suspect and victim through this quilt.
Be honest. Did you watch the last scene through your fingers? Comment yes or no.
I think we have enough evidence to prove to a Stewart County jury that she's dead and 𝐃𝐿 guilty.
The evidence was presented to District Attorney Dan Alsobrooks.
We're going to have a hard time proving that she's dead when we don't have a body. We just got one shot at this.
Alsobrooks was apprehensive about taking Pipkin to trial.
The obvious challenge of the case was the lack of a body. Once we got to trial, would this issue of not having a body end up being reasonable doubt for the jury?
But police were determined to bring Pipkin to justice and ran through the evidence again.
We've got the quilt that has her blood on it. We know that it was her blood on the quilt, her blood at the crime scene, and we can put the quilt in his truck.
We don't get two chances to try a murder case. He's found not guilty, that's it.
The DA was unconvinced he could get a conviction.
And we know that that quilt came.
A murder case is very difficult to make if it's totally circumstantial. You've got to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that there's been a homicide and then prove beyond a reasonable doubt who committed the homicide.
She left that day. She had every intention.
Sheriff Hicks knew June's body was out there somewhere.
Somebody tried to hide.
And to him, the case was not closed.
And her watch had been torn from her arm.
2 years later, on August 23, 1993, a fisherman made a gruesome discovery. The lower half of a female torso surfaced in the Tennessee River. Her family recognized the clothing, and they knew it was June. Kenneth Pipkin was arrested and charged with murder. Police believe that June threatened to expose their relationship. Pipkin killed her to ensure her silence. But with the help of forensic science, June's story was finally told.
For a small town murder, probably had as many expert witnesses as I've ever had in the case. I had a forensic pathologist that had done the autopsy. You had fiber experts, you had a blood expert from the TBI. It was a fascinating case to put together as a prosecutor.
Kenneth Pipkin was found guilty of second-degree murder. He is now serving a 20-year sentence. Some killers go to great lengths to keep their victims' whereabouts a mystery, leaving no bodies and only traces of the crime. There was a time when justice was scarce for these perpetrators. But today, forensic science arms law enforcement with the necessary weapons to convict, providing a witness where there is none.